I found out I was erased from my father's will while sitting on a plane beside the woman who did it, my sister. And before I could even process that betrayal, the right engine exploded. The captain collapsed, the oxygen masks dropped, passengers screamed, and somehow I, the unstable one, the soldier she mocked, ended up in the cockpit flying 300 people through smoke panic and a cockpit on fire. She said I wasn't real, said I wore a uniform to hide. But that day, the only thing that kept her alive was me. I hadn't seen my sister in 4 years, and the first thing she said to me at our father's funeral was, "Oh, you actually showed up." That's how the tone was set. My name is Claire Holt. I'm a U.S. Air Force pilot stationed out of Ramstein. I've flown over combat zones, navigated zero visibility, pulled broken aircraft through hell and back. But nothing, not war, not turbulence, prepared me for the emotional warfare waiting back home. The funeral didn't feel like mourning. It felt like a quarterly shareholder meeting. Hotel ballroom, lukewarm coffee, lawyers in charcoal suits, and my sister Madison standing at the front like she owned grief itself. She wore a navy sheath dress and zero expression. Her voice was flat, efficient, like she was closing a real estate deal, not burying our father. She didn't even look at me when I walked in, didn't acknowledge the uniform, the ribbons, the years I spent earning everything she was born into. "Claire," she said, finally glancing up like she was checking a grocery list. "Didn't expect you to fly in from wherever." "Ramstein?" I replied. She nodded like I'd told her I worked at a bus station. Then she turned back to the attorney, flipping pages like I was already dismissed. When the will was read, it was short, suspiciously short. Madison was the executor. She inherited everything: the estate, the accounts, the real estate, the shares in Dad's holding company. Me, I got a sealed envelope and a quiet "thank you for your service." Inside the envelope, a Korean War era challenge coin and a photo of Dad next to a jet from 19 Seb. That's it. Not the watch he always wore, not the cabin in Montana I practically rebuilt with him one summer, not even a note in his handwriting, just a coin and a message scribbled on a post-it: "Your father admired your discipline." Madison glanced at me once during the reading. No emotion, just that smug little smile she saves for moments when she wins without even trying. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't neglect. It was intentional. She'd orchestrated all of it. I just didn't know how far she'd gone yet. As we left the hotel, she leaned over and said, "I hope you're not planning to wear that uniform on the plane home. Kind of dramatic, don't you think?" I looked her dead in the eye. "It's not a costume, Madison." Sure, she smirked. "But does it come with a respect me button?" I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, but because I'd already started calculating. And when I start calculating, that's when you should be afraid. We boarded the flight from Lisbon to Denver business class. "Not my call," Madison insisted. "It'll look strange if we fly separately," she said. "Optics matter." I wanted to roll my eyes. I didn't care about optics. I cared about silence. She took the window seat, of course. I sat on the aisle. Between us, an empty seat, though it might as well have been a war zone. She ordered Chardonnay before takeoff. I buckled in and stared straight ahead. 10 minutes into the air, she spoke. "You know, Dad always hoped we'd work together again someday. He thought maybe once you were done pretending." I blinked. Pretending. She sipped slowly, "This military thing. Overseas, boots and salutes. He thought it was a phase." I clenched my jaw. I did not realize service was a personality flaw. "Oh, come on, Claire," she laughed tight rehearsed. "It's not about service, it's about avoidance. You use the military to run away from what?" She leaned in slightly. "Real life, accountability, growing up." I froze. Just for a second. Then I turned to the in-flight screen, didn't even press anything, just stared. But she wasn't done. "You do know you're no longer in the will, right?" My blood stopped. She smiled. "There's a mental health clause. Disqualifies beneficiaries with certain unresolved histories." I turned to her slowly. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, Claire." She sighed like I was a child. "That evaluation after Syria, the 3 months of mandated leave, that was enough. You leaked my records." My voice cracked. "I shared them with the estate attorney," she said, "to protect the family's interests. It's not personal, it's legal." Legal, that word sliced deeper than I expected. You weaponized my trauma, I whispered. She shrugged. I clarified it. You're still family, just not a fiduciary risk anymore. I stared out the window. I wasn't angry, I was calculating. I thought about Dad's coin, the photo, the silence. Maybe he knew what she was doing. Maybe he didn't have the strength to stop it, but gave me the message anyway. That coin wasn't a gift, it was a warning. And Madison, she thought the war between us was over, but I'd only just started to understand what battlefield I was on. The seatbelt sign dinged above us. Outside clouds darkened. Then a sudden jolt. Madison's wine spilled across her lap. She swore under her breath and jabbed the call button. I didn't move. But deep in my gut, something didn't feel right. The turbulence got worse, not the usual kind, not the, oh, buckle up, for a few bumps kind. This was different. The kind that changed pitch, that hummed under your feet metallic and wrong. The first jolt made passengers gasp. The second knocked a flight attendant into the beverage cart. Madison wrinkled her nose. What kind of amateur airline is this? She looked at me like I'd have answers. Is this normal? Turbulence is... That sound isn't. I unbuckled slightly just enough to lean forward and glance toward the cockpit. No movement, no announcement. Then a bang from the tail section, sharp, hollow. My heart dropped. People started murmuring. A baby cried. The man across the aisle gripped his daughter's hand like it was all he had left. And Madison, she finally looked rattled. Shouldn't someone be saying something? She whispered. That's when the smell hit me. Faint at first, burnt plastic, electrical. I looked around. No smoke, no alarms yet, but I knew that scent. Wiring, possibly fire. The captain's voice finally came through the intercom. Flat, slow, not reassuring. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a minor technical issue with the starboard engine. Please remain seated. His voice cracked mid-sentence, then static, no follow-up, no co-pilot voice. Just silence. My pulse spiked. This wasn't just turbulence, this was malfunction. Possibly failure, the kind of moment where seconds matter. Madison gave a theatrical sigh. Minor issue, huh? I didn't respond. She waved a hand in front of me. Earth to Claire. You've seen worse, haven't you? Combat zones burning things. Air disasters. She smirked like she was making a joke. You're one of those joystick warriors, right? You fly in combat, but nobody shoots back. I turned to her. You think that's what I do? She blinked, sensing the shift. I think you put on a uniform because you can't function outside it. I paused. I breathed in. And then I snapped. Madison, I said calmly. If you knew how many lives I've flown out of burning hot zones while being shot at, you'd be ashamed of yourself. She shrugged. You always did love being dramatic. A sharp crack echoed through the cabin. The lights dimmed, then came back, then dimmed again. And then the masks dropped, hisses of oxygen, screams. A flight attendant running toward the cockpit. The smell of fire got stronger. Passengers started shouting. And Madison, she finally realized this wasn't about control anymore. This was survival. She turned to me, voice shaking now. What do we do? I looked her in the eye. We pray someone on this plane knows what the hell they're doing. I stood up and headed toward the cockpit. The cockpit door was unlocked. I pushed it open and chaos spilled out, and the captain was slumped over the controls mask askew, eyes glazed, and the co-pilot, pale sweating, clutched his throat with one hand and the yoke with the other. He looked up and saw me. You Claire Holt, you U.S. Air Force. I can't hold trim fire and engine 2 hydraulics failing. I've got it. He hesitated. One beat, then let go. I slipped into the left seat strapped in, pulled on the oxygen mask, and took the controls. Everything was vibrating, one engine out, the other overcompensating, flight display flickering like a dying star, warning lights screaming in red and orange. I ran through the checklist out loud, out of habit, out of sheer adrenaline. Engine fire manual, bypass, trim, override, gear status. Behind me, I heard a voice. You've got to be kidding me. Madison. She stood in the doorway of the cockpit, gripping the frame like a lifeline. You're not flying this. I didn't even look at her. Close the damn door. You're not certified for this, Claire. Close. The door. She didn't move. The co-pilot did. He stumbled past her and slammed the door shut. And just like that, the noise became manageable. Focus returned. I toggled the manual hydraulic switch. The stick stiffened. The plane banked left again, but I corrected it. Mayday. This is Skybridge 3072. Captain incapacitated. Engine 2 fire. Request emergency diversion. Crackling. Then a reply. Skybridge 3072. This is Madrid Center. Nearest field is McLaren 150 miles. Runway length short. You are cleared. Repeat, you are cleared. My hands locked into the yoke. I could feel the aircraft resisting me, like it didn't believe I was strong enough. But I was. Behind the curtain, I heard murmurs, then her voice again. She's not even a real pilot. She's military. Not trained for this. I ignored it. She's unstable, Madison said louder. She's had psych evals. PTSD. She can't be trusted. The co-pilot turned to me, eyes wide. You okay? I didn't flinch. Let's land this bird. He nodded. We've got one chance. You good with short runways? I've landed fighter jets on desert roads with one wing and a nosebleed. I'll manage. Outside, the sky darkened. The right engine was smoke, not thrust. The airspeed dropped. Wind shear kicked in. I adjusted. The cockpit lights flickered. The fuel system started cross-feeding. I shut down the autopilot. It was useless now. And for the first time since takeoff, the aircraft responded like it understood me. Like it finally trusted I knew what I was doing. You ever landed something this big? The co-pilot asked. No, I said. But I've landed worse. We landed. Not gracefully, not smoothly, but alive. The tires screamed, the brakes groaned, smoke curled from the right wing like a warning from the underworld. And just feet from the tree line, the plane finally stopped. Silence. I sat frozen hands still gripping the yoke. The co-pilot Aaron, I'd later learn, looked at me like I'd just rewritten physics. You actually did it. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure how. Behind us, the cockpit door cracked open. A flight attendant peeked in, voice trembling. Is it over? I nodded. Landing's done. Rescue's yours now. Then I stood, stepped into the cabin, and the moment my boots hit the aisle, every passenger turned. Some clapped, others wept. A few just stared. Row 14A, Madison, still perfect, still composed, still furious. You, she spat, you actually landed us. I didn't stop walking. Yes, I said. I did. She caught up to me at the galley. You had no right, Claire. That's not how command works. There are 300 people breathing because I ignored the chain of command, I replied, which is 300 more than you've ever saved. Her mouth opened, closed. No comeback this time. Later, I sat on the tarmac wrapped in a space blanket. The media had already arrived. Microphones, lats, headlines being written in real time. I said nothing. No hero speeches, no sound bites. The truth didn't need a narrator, but by morning the backlash had begun. 2 days later, I was summoned to a joint review by the Department of Transportation, FAA, and Air Mobility Command. They didn't want to talk about heroism. They wanted to talk about jurisdiction. Why did you enter the cockpit? Did you override commercial protocol? Were you emotionally stable during the event? Any history of trauma, disassociation, hallucinations? I answered everything, flat, factual, unapologetic, but I could feel it. They weren't just reviewing the incident, they were reviewing me. And then came the leak, a clip from the flight. Madison's voice crystal clear. She's not even a real pilot. She's a toy soldier playing dress up. It went viral. The internet turned on her. Hard. They called her entitled, cruel, dangerous. For the first time in 20 years, the world saw the woman I'd been fighting silently all my life. But it didn't stop there, because while everyone argued about whether I was a hero or a liability, I was digging. And what I found was worse than I ever imagined. My name hadn't just been removed from the will, it had been erased from the estate itself using doctored legal clauses, forged notary stamps, and language pulled from my confidential military records. The clause unfit to manage fiduciary assets due to psychological impairment. My concussion from a G-force training sim spun into a psychiatric condition. I stared at the documents my lawyer handed me, and I whispered the truth out loud. She didn't just want to cut me out, she wanted to make sure no one would ever trust me again. I didn't want revenge, not at first. But when you find out your sister used forged signatures, fake diagnoses, and a 6-layer shell company to erase your name from your father's legacy, you stop hoping for fairness. You start fighting for truth. I handed over every document I had to a federal investigator: bank records, VPN traces, digital timestamps, everything. He didn't blink. "We've been waiting for this," he said. Turns out I wasn't the only one suspicious of Madison Holt. And just like that, the tide shifted. Halberg Financial, her firm launched an internal audit. Her name vanished from the boardroom roster in 72 hours. By the end of the week, she was on leave pending review. They didn't say fraud, they said reputational risk. That's how the powerful fall, quietly, without ceremony. Meanwhile, the FAA and Department of Defense released a joint statement. Captain Claire Holt acted within reasonable emergence authority. No violations found, no medals, no apology. But I didn't need one. I requested reassignment, not back into combat, but into mentorship, pilot development, training, outreach for young women in aviation. The Air Force approved it within a week. And with part of my estate share finally returned after Madison's power unraveled, I founded the Windmark Institute. 12 cadets, all women, all told at some point in their lives that they couldn't fly. Now, they flew with my name on their flight suits, not because I wanted recognition, but because I wanted them to see that someone like them had already made it. And just when I thought the last page of this story had turned, she came back. Not Madison, her daughter, Morgan Holt. She showed up at my base, 19, nervous, holding an application packet in both hands like it might burn her fingers. "I know who you are," she said, "and I know what she did, but I want to earn my wings. Not because of her, not because of our name, because I want to fly." I looked at her, really looked. She had her mother's jawline, but not her eyes. Those eyes were raw, honest, determined. "She cut you off, didn't she?" Morgan nodded. "She said if I came here, I'd be on my own." I let the silence stretch. Then I picked up her application. "Orientation starts in 4 weeks. No shortcuts, no legacy points. If you make it through, your wings will be yours, not hers." She smiled. That's all I ever wanted. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just healing, I was rebuilding. One girl, one flight, one truth at a time. Weeks later, I watched Morgan fly. She was rough at first, overcorrected on crosswind, flared too hard on descent. But her hands were steady, her instincts sharp. And on her third try, she nailed it. When she climbed out of the trainer cockpit, sweat soaking through her collar, she looked up at me and grinned. "Was that decent?" I shrugged deadpan. "It didn't kill us." She laughed, nervous but real. That laugh, it undid something in me. For years, I'd defined myself by the war with Madison, by what was taken, by what I had to prove. But now I was building something no one could take. The Windmark Institute had no legacy name on the wall, just mine. And not because I needed credit, but because I needed to finally truly stand for something that wasn't born from survival. We trained 15 cadets that first cycle. 13 had never touched a real yoke. By month 3, they were flying patterns over the desert like it was second nature. No one asked about Madison. No one brought up the plane. No one cared about what I'd been called on the news. To them, I wasn't a liability. I was just Captain Holt, instructor, mentor, pilot, and that meant everything. One evening, I stood alone at the edge of the runway. Sunset, orange sky spilling across the concrete. The wind was soft, dry American. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out something I'd carried since that flight dad's coin. I hadn't held it in months. I turned it over in my hand, felt the weight, not just of metal, but of everything I had survived to get here. I placed it inside a small wooden box mounted beside the hangar. Above it, a brass plaque read Windmark Institute, founded by Captain Claire Holt. For every girl told she couldn't fly. Then I walked back into the briefing room, opened the logbook, and wrote Morgan's name next to her first solo sim. Under instructor notes, I wrote confident under pressure. Sharp in correction, listens when it counts. A Holt, but not her mother's kind. I closed the logbook, set it on the shelf. 12 books now, 12 classes of women no one believed in until they did it anyway. I turned off the lights, stepped into the night, and looked up at the sky, not to prove anything, just to remember it was always mine. I didn't set out to be a hero. I didn't set out to fight my own blood or land a burning aircraft or rebuild my reputation from ashes. I just wanted to be seen, heard, respected for who I was, not erased because I didn't fit someone else's definition of success. And in the end, I didn't need revenge. I needed freedom. Freedom to teach, to build, to fly without asking for permission. I don't know if Madison ever really saw me not as the soldier, the pilot, or the sister, but I saw her, clearly, and I chose not to become her. I chose legacy over legacy wars. And now every time a girl like Morgan lifts off the ground for the first time, I know it was all worth it. Nah. So tell me, what would you do if your own sister tried to erase everything you are? Am I wrong for cutting her off even after she handed over the estate? Would you forgive her, or fly forward without ever looking back? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit home for you, subscribe. There's more where this came from. We fly higher together.